when the government comes in, confiscates money from my wallet, and hands it over to you in the form of food stamps, your opportunity cost disappears. Now your food is taken care of, so X amount of dollars that you have can go to drugs. When government relieves you of that opportunity cost, government is relieving you of personal responsibility and relieving you of your liberty as well. Whether or not you choose to recognize it is irrelevant. Now, Nick made a point in addressing this issue that the congressmen aren't drug testing themselves. They're requiring people receiving government assistance to undergo drug testing, but they're not being tested themselves. And there may be a bit of a point here, because congressmen and elected officials are paid out of your tax dollars as well. But here's the funny thing. The onus is not on them to prove that they are not on drugs because they are taking your money. Why? Because in taking your money, they are performing a task. Whether or not they do it well is beside the point. They are being paid for a job. The recipients of these food stamp and welfare benefits are not receiving them for performing any task. Now again, this gets back to the notion of jobs. What is a job? Many people in our society, folks, will tell you that a job is what you do to earn money, or a social benefit. A job is yours. Well, that is not quite true. In fact, it's not even remotely true. A job, folks, a job does not belong to the person that is doing said job. It belongs to and is the sole property of the entity that creates the job. As their property, they have an absolute right to do whatever they want to with that job. They can move it, expand it, shrink it, or utterly destroy it. It makes no difference to you. You have no say-so in what they do with it because it is theirs. The jobs in this country belong to the employers, those evil corporations that Nick loves to decry on his shows. And he may still do that on his other shows, but not on the CB Media Network airwaves. Because I have never in my life, folks, gotten a job from anything other than a corporation. And Nick, if you happen to be listening, let me fill you in on something. CB Media Group is a corporation. CB Media Group, LLC. A limited liability corporation, but a corporation nonetheless. So while you're using the CB Media Network airwaves, Nick, you may want to keep in mind, well, you may have wanted to keep in mind that you were doing corporate-y things on corporate radio. But to continue, a job, folks, the reason it is the property of those who created that job, a job is a task to be performed. That's it. It's not a way for you to earn money. It's not a social benefit. It's not a way for the government to dip into your paycheck through withholding. A job is simply a task to be performed that the person who needs it performed doesn't want to do themselves. By choosing to make your own breakfast in the morning, rather than getting the microwave operator down at McDonald's to make breakfast for you, you are not destroying his job. if you choose to make that breakfast yourself, because McDonald's created that job, not you. McDonald's created that job because the CEO of McDonald's has a few better things to do besides operating the microwave behind the counter. It's a task that he does not want to perform himself. And so he passes it on to someone else who is not going to perform that task without being compensated for it. Hence, a job is created. McDonald's creates that job for that microwave operator to make breakfast for people who choose to buy breakfast rather than making it for themselves. But when the government steps in and limits how many sausage patties McDonald's is allowed to sell because of the fat content or the salt content or the pork content or whatever the hell reason they want to bring up for limiting how many sausage patties McDonald's is allowed to sell, when the government does that, the government has, as a direct result, destroyed sausage patty microwaving jobs that were not the property of the government to dispose of. When you clean your own house, instead of hiring a housekeeper, are you destroying a job? No, there are still housekeepers out there because there are still people who have that task to perform of cleaning their house, but they choose not to perform that task themselves and hire someone else instead to do it for them. If jobs were a social benefit, if that was the purpose of a job, then government could order businesses to create jobs and to hire X number of people because X number of people in that community are unemployed. But it doesn't work that way. All the pointy-headed professors and pleading pundits pontificating on public good can't make it work that way. The private sector works, folks, because they do things the exact opposite way around from the way government does them. The private sector will put the engine in the front of the train and make sure that there's plenty of fuel. And along the way, passenger cars are added as the businesses expand and create jobs, because those tasks to be performed are not going to be performed by the people who start those evil corporations. And as those passenger cars get added, as those businesses expand, as those corporations expand, the whole damn train gets to Prosperity Town together. That's the way it used to work in this country. And the entire federal government could fit into the caboose. But the private sector's engine was still pulling them along to Prosperity Town too. The private sector's engine was pulling government along to reach Prosperity Town too. But the government was in the caboose at the very back of the train. So the government gets to Prosperity Town last, because the businesses who create the jobs and the people who perform those jobs reap the benefits of Prosperity Town first. Everybody else gets to Prosperity Town first, and each successive passenger car's inertia helps to pull the government caboose along. That's the way it used to work in this country. But government doesn't work that way. Government doesn't work the way that private sector with that engine pulling that train to Prosperity Town. Government doesn't work that way. Government instead takes that engine, which is and always has been the private sector in a free market. Government, in their current incarnation, takes that engine and puts it in the back of the train. In front of that engine, they put 150 freight cars full to busting with bureaucrats and their corollary bureaucracy. And the caboose is the elected class. and that's at the very front of the train. In a small filing cabinet, in a dark, neglected corner of that caboose, at the front of that train, sits the enumerated powers of that government. Because those enumerated powers in that filing cabinet, in that dark, neglected corner of that caboose, because those are neglected, the bounds of those powers that the government has, because it's neglected the bounds of those powers, the government has decided to put the engine, the private sector in a free market, at the back of that train and removed the coal car. And now they expect it to push all of these freight cars with the caboose heading up the train. Then President Obama scratches his head and wonders why it's not working. Why aren't jobs being created? Let me be clear, Mr. President. It's because jobs are not primarily a social benefit. That is not their purpose. Again, they are a task to be performed. If there is no task to be performed, no job is created. What is so hard to understand about that? But yet we have people in our society that are completely economically illiterate. They cannot understand those simple, basic concepts. They can't understand that, hey, you know what? That train is supposed to be headed up by the engine. And however long that train gets, as long as that engine still has fuel, it will pull the passenger cars and the government caboose just fine. When you remove the fuel from it and then stick it in the back of the train and make it push, it doesn't work as well. It's really quite simple. But yet, again, we have people in our country who are completely, utterly, economically illiterate not to understand that concept. It is our task here on the CB Media Network and elsewhere in talk radio, on blogs, and on terrestrial and satellite radio as well, and on the internet, where blogs generally reside. I feel foolish now. Anyway, it is our job to explain these things to those who are economically illiterate. But now, back to Nick's argument about drug testing people who receive benefits from the government. He says, well, they keep taking away from we the people. Well, yes, we the people who actually foot government's bills are having our hard-earned capital seized to fund all of these giveaway programs. As Bastiat put it, this is the few plundering the many. That's what we have today. There are only two other options. Everybody plunders everyone, or nobody plunders anybody. And this is how our system was set up. Nobody plunders anybody. Perhaps we should return to that system rather than bitching about politicians who simply want to ensure that the opportunity cost of drugs versus food is not offset by the taxpayer. You won't be bitching about government taking away from we the people if we return to the system of nobody plunders anybody, because the only reason to take from some of we the people is to buy the votes of the rest of them, the people. So yes, government is taking away from we the people, Nick, but it's not in the form of drug testing welfare recipients. That's not taking away from we the people. Taking away from we the people would be continuing the current process where we the taxpayers are funding the drug use of the welfare recipients. And again, let me remind you, property is not just your car or your house or your TV or your freaking socks. It is your body, your mind, your time, and your productivity, whether what you produce is a function of your physical effort or your intellectual effort, and you have the free will, which is the main component of liberty, to choose what you produce, when, where, and how much. When choosing how much to